We're here today gathered to discuss, announce that we have 1,000 indigenous tribes that will come together with this new paradigm that we're looking forward to as a result of the COVID-19 that has literally stopped the world. And that gave us a chance to re-look how the future is going to be for us. And dear Lord, in that process, we need your guidance because there is so many unknowns. It's a new paradigm. It needs your blessings. It needs your leadership. And the three peacemakers, as we have devoted our time, would like to have the 1,000 tribes, indigenous tribes of the world, to join us for peace, because war has no place in the world. As we speak and as we're asking for your help, dear Lord, Ethiopia is going through a turmoil because of war, an inside kind of a civil war that doesn't get anybody anything except misery for the poor, misery for the people. So, dear Lord, we leave all our future endeavor in your hands, and we need your blessings. Amen.
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 Thank you.
PK, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Maybe I'll just make a short
Yeah,
introduction.
sure,
Okay.
David.
So we are at the Conference of Movements 26 Virtual Com 26v.com. Today is day 9th. We've been broadcasting for 9 days, imagine. we didn't even think we would get first day, and we're in the 9th day already. And today is called this conference is a News Social
Systems.
Yeah, New Social Systems Conference to build new social systems. How it would look like if we build new social systems to create a thriving world. What do you mean by thriving? Thriving, that means that it's not sustaining. Sustain means to maintain the status quo. Thriving, that means everyone is happy. Everyone has a lot of abundance, wealth, prosperity, and abundance, and everybody can be able to reach the full human potential without any obstacles. So we have today the three peacemakers, and myself, David Cam, Sheri Lewis, and we have the honor of our brother, Mesfin Zaid there, who has been MIA from this, and we're very happy to have him back.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, fortunately, and we have special guest TK here, and Mesfin, take it away.
Okay, very good. Thank you for this opportunity, and definitely with this new social system conference that we have as a title. There are 3-4 items, topics that would love to address. As for myself, I would like to focus on what Africa in general and East Africa in particular would look like beyond COVID-19, as COVID has literally made us stop, of course, in a lot of areas with a lot of loss of lives, a lot of sick people. It has completely made us think that the way we've been carrying our lives. It's not there anymore, and it's not going to be in the future. So we have to recalibrate life. And what does that mean to the African? And I would be more specific to the African immigrants that are all over the world. Some as immigrants and some as refugees that have just left their country of origin in search of economic opportunities or running away or escaping war, senseless wars. I can go back as far as I can, maybe 50 years. Africa has been tormented with unnecessary, unwanted, and senseless wars. That created a lot of poverty, homelessness, hopelessness. And because of that, a lot of Africans started leaving the continent and going to European countries, Middle East, all the way to the United States in the form of refugees, in the form of either seeking freedom and or seeking opportunities. So having those missing in their own countries or in our own continent, the Europeans and the Americans are offering all kinds of opportunities. So the African young, the college graduates, even beyond that, highly skilled professionals left the continent and ended up being in Europe and being in the United States. So that created a brain drain. Every country in Africa has paid dearly to educate in most of African countries for free with no tuition. But as soon as they graduate and have their professional careers, they leave the country or the continent for better opportunities. So in this new social system that we're looking forward, my wish would be, number one, we Africans in the diaspora have to make an effort to come back or go back to where we originated from, because we're needed there. Of course, there's a lot of sacrifice we have to make, but sacrifice is something we can afford so that the African continent, in so many terms, is called the dark continent. I'd like to take that word dark off of that continent and make it a bright, welcoming, prosperous continent. I'll stop at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. And TK, please introduce yourself and share your perspectives as well.
Thank you very much. And I've extremely been humbled by this opportunity. And first, I would like to praise the Lord. You know, you call it God, Allah, Xavier, or, you know, the supernatural Father, to provide us these blessings today, you know, just to share our, commitment to where we come from and to a betterment of humanity at all. And I'm extremely thankful, especially for my good brother, you know, who enlightened me with this great LiveHOPE Festival executive producers, Mr. Girma. And actually, I would like to thank Miss Sheri, and Mr. Mesfin, Mr. David, and all the executive producers of LiveHOPE Festival for this great opportunity. And basically, I have always been hoping and praying for a better future for all the children in Africa. And basically, where I had a humble beginning, where I come from, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and I used to go to a very close proximity to a neighborhood school where everybody from all over the world, like the diplomatic missions, they bring their children at a place called Lycée Gebra Mariam, where I used to live right next door. We were connected with soul, we were connected with great spirit. So we didn't know any language, to speak, whether if they are from Arabian world or if they are from the United States or from Asia, from any parts of the world, or French or Italy. But we were very connected with one supernatural power. And I really would like to focus on that. So our continents, especially Africa, and at this point in time, Ethiopia and Eritrea, it's very unfortunate that they are again into another turmoil and genocide, and it really breaks my heart. And I hope and pray that peace and reconciliation and good governors, and as well as also safety and security to the people will be delivered by collaborating with the international diplomatic missions, and also with the Amnesty International, with all the United Nations, to be able to help end this unnecessary war, like my brother Mr. Mesfin mentioned earlier. So basically, when I was as a young talent, and I used to promote youth talent in Ethiopia, and especially today with our international conference, I would say that especially creating a sustainable economic stability for young entrepreneurs would be a way to go. Because we have a lot of talents, in terms of arts and music and fashion. If every opportunity is given to any kid, any young talent, they'll be able to be more productive citizens, and they'll be able to contribute for their family and community, as well as the country, and of course global at large. If given the chance. So I believe that equal opportunity for all the young and indigenous people here in the US, as well as in Africa and the third world, especially in Ethiopia, is extremely of a very important aspect. My background, I've been luckily appointed as a task force of the United Nations country team for the Millennium Development Goals, whereby I've been serving as a secretary of the Arts and Mass Media Task Force. And we brought all those resources together so to be able to advocate for the Millennium Declaration. And at the same time now, the LiveHOPE Festival and the this particular conference would be able to provide a platform for all the youth, in the world to be able to help them cultivate their talents. And we could be able to, bring resources together by inviting, all governments of the world and the United Nations and diplomatic missions all over the world to be able to, put resources in terms of, providing them with the trainers of trainers. It could be about coding. It could be about, indigenous talents, which is arts and crafts. It could be in a fairy tale storytelling of indigenous people to be able to have the freedom of speech to produce their own kind of fairy tale stories in terms of with a puppet show. It could be with their own cartoon shows. It could be films like Wakanda. It could be different kind of stuff. So I believe that if we try to outsource for the larger community, who could be able to transfer knowledge. It could be a boot camp. It could be, in terms of having Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts in every indigenous area, and then those talents will be able to achieve their dreams. And I believe the sky is the limit. And I hope you as a peacemakers, and I really appreciate that you've given me the chance, to have a same platform to be able to express my prayers and wishes as an elite. We follow you and we follow the leaders, and with our resources together, I believe that we can achieve our goal for 2030. And maybe in a few minutes, I can be able to elaborate more on how to help. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that introduction and your explanation. It was very well received. And one of the projects that we're working on as we're bringing the 1,000 Indigenous nations together that seems to keep transcending through the topics is the wellness centers, like you said, how the boys and girls clubs and where kids can come for their curriculum. But, I really believe in engaging our elders with our youth and having different communities set up to be able to really do that and amplify these talents. And so I definitely really appreciate everything that you shared and brought together. So yes, David, did you want to touch on that? You're muted.
When I was, I did not know that much about Africa. We learned in school, at high school, for geography about the Maasai tribe and some other tribes. But, one important thing about Africa, a lot of people do not know, is Africa, the continent, is actually basically the breadbasket for the world. They provide gold, diamonds, oil, cotton, and so many other things that they've been extracting out of the continent of Africa. Yet there's many Africans still are not financially secure. They and less than financially secure. There's still people who are starving in Africa, especially during the time of crisis. When during the time of crisis like war, example, the locusts in Africa is going across certain African countries and destroying entire crop, even the forest, everything that's green in their past. But why are these locusts allowed to breed? Is because actually one of the reasons is war. A lot of organizations, they spend their money on war, and people are afraid to go to those regions to basically eliminate those locusts. A lot of these locusts come from places like Yemen that has war, and that has devastated that country also. Maybe Mesfin could touch on the locusts. He knows a lot more about it. That is linked to the war and instability and so on. Mesfin?
Sure. Thank you, David. Talking about this locust thing, it has been around for 30, 40 years, maybe more. And like you said, instead of allocating funds, money, resources, trying to eradicate once and for all, this has been a devastating invasion. And when do they come? They come exactly when the crop is ready to be harvested. And those poor countries have no way of defending their farms. And the farms are not commercial farming, they are subsistence farming, family farming. And whatever little that they were expecting to feed themselves, the villages and the towns, locust has been the most devastating and devouring insect that Africans have to face, mostly East Africans have to face. Originally, I'm from Eritrea. One thing we commend Eritrea for is malaria was a big issue in Eritrea. It still is in other parts of East Africa. Well, the government took a serious step to eradicate malaria totally out of the country. And they did, and they were very successful. The United Nations and other organizations have recognized that and acknowledged. And these are the things that could be done in other parts of Africa, East Africa, and more precisely, eradicate that locust once and for all. But where does the money, instead of wasting money and funds and resources on senseless wars, we Africans in the diaspora, or Africans in general from Africa, better take a good look and say, how do we stop this senseless war and focus on being self-reliant? One thing Eritrea is known for, the government of Eritrea. By the way, out of the entire continent of Africa, Eritrea, a very small country, size of Pennsylvania, and only 5 to 6 million population. The government, the leader, believes in self-reliant. Eritrea is the only country in Africa that does not take US aid or anybody's aid, because with that comes strings attached. And the government says, whatever we can do on our own, we will do ourselves. So self-reliance, if every country in Africa would focus on that and stop giving away their natural resources for a loan of 300 million, 200 million, and loans that they are not even able to pay back, let alone the principal, the interest that is levied on it. So African countries, we should start thinking, what is it that we can do going forward? Let's not cry and say, the white man came, colonized us, this, that. Yes, that has happened. What we need to do now is focus on what we can do going forward. Let's stop crying and whining. Let's do something. We still have the resources. We can do it. But in this topic, by the way, in this new social systems that we are talking about, I think there are 4 items that were identified as discussion. David, if I may, let me read those. I think the first one was Black Lives Matter. And second was police brutality. Third was women empowerment. And last but not least, world basic income. And I'll refer back again to Africa. And under Black Lives Matter, the very word black is Africa. Africa is where Black people come from. So the African American in America that is going through these atrocities, for lack of better expression, I call it atrocities against Black people just because of the color of your skin. And Black people are dying left and right. These are African Americans, but we also, as immigrants from Africa, we are part of the Black American right here in the United States. So this Black Lives Matter affects the Africans too, not only the African American. So we have to stand united to fight because our lives matter. We cannot be persecuted or seen differently because we're Black. This color identification has to stop. The Chinese being called, or the Asian being called yellow, and First Nations being called Red Indians, and this and that. This stupid coloring has to stop. So Black Lives Matter. There's a lot for us if we're left alone. We don't want to be bothered. And I don't want my children to feel that their skin has something to do with their future. So that's so much for the Black Lives Matter in conjunction with the African. Police brutality, of course, goes with what we're saying. Black Lives Matter. Black people are being persecuted, denied job opportunities, living areas, marginalized. All these evil things has to stop. And it takes the world, all of us, white, Asian, Black, all kinds of colors of the world, has to get together and stop this nonsense and move on, because the world has a lot to offer. And we should be able to engage in that and enjoy what the world could offer. And Africa has a lot to offer. As for the women empowerment, I was fortunate enough in 2005, I was an advisor to the UNDP, and I'd like to tell a story. In 2005, we went to Uganda, and Kampala is the capital city. And we were addressing the empowerment of the African women so that they become self-reliant. They don't have to depend on their husbands all their lives. They could do something. So here's a perfect example. What we did was we went to the marketplace and chose the best artifacts made out of baskets, out of wood, out of metal, of what have you. Tourists would come and pay maybe 10 shillings, 5 shillings for those. We took the best of the best, brought it to New York, and asked a few CEOs, how much would you pay for this beautiful figurehead? CEO said, my God, I would be happy to get it for $100. So we created this organization in Kampala, women, to try and make one of the best artifacts, create a company right in Uganda, in Kampala, put it on a website that could look like it came from New York, and then sell it. Take that money, bring it back to the village, and make these women, empower these women to continue working that. And it worked. That was 2005. So the empowerment of the African woman, or women in general, all over the world, need to be empowered. Because without women, 3 boys here would not be here. That's a simple fact. So our women have to be empowered in every sense. And here we have Kamala Harris as the first Black vice president, first woman in the United States. And we're very happy to see this. And she will be the role model for a lot of Black women. So last but not least, the world basic income for the African diaspora, or for the African immigrant or refugees, that lately, because of hate against Africans, against Black people in Europe, in the United States, I have one suggestion for all the refugees that I have flooded countries in Africa, in Europe. How about making a system to bring them back to their homeland, but in one condition. Let's give each one of them, recommend to the European Union, give every individual $100,000 so that they could start a life with that money when they come back to their country. Invest in SMEs, small to medium enterprises, and be self-sufficient. That way Europeans don't have to be bothered by African refugees. We'll take them back. Same in the United States. It's a win-win situation because the African doesn't have to go through the social system of every country where they will be subsidized. So in this new paradigm, because of COVID, I would address that. In fact, I'll take it personally and pursue what I just said. Give us back our refugees, give us back our children who lost their dignity in train stations and so on, and sleeping in the streets, eating from garbage cans, what have you. This has to stop. I cannot. I just get sick when I think about it. These people, these children belong to somebody's family. So I would love to bring them back, and I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Mesfin, I have a question for you. In regards to what you were talking about bringing the children and the people back home in such a empowered way, and talking about how much Africa has, there's the obstacle going back to when colonization happened to actually get the revenue back from France. I hear that France still takes like 30% in certain areas of the revenue of Africa. So also standing up to fight those laws and, to break away from what was established hundreds of years ago that has no right to be in Africa, which is also taking away. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up, because first of all, it has no justification.
Right.
They came and colonized Africa. The French colonized countries in Africa. Lost their and provided the natural resources. Europe would not be Europe without African natural capital assets.
Right.
If that was not bad enough, when colonization had to stop in the 50s, the French government has the audacity to have the central bank, the Federal Reserve, controlled in France.
Wow.
And they are taxed. And you know what the reason is? The stupid reason they give? Well, we build the infrastructure, we build the streets, the hospitals, the freeways, the docks, the ports. And you did it because for your own advantage. The African didn't tell you to do that. You did it because you wanted to colonize it and call it another European or French colony or French state. When you are forced to leave, you still want to control. And the poor African nations that were colonized by France are still paying. And the world, the United Nations, European Union, they know it's wrong, but nobody will stop them. So as we speak, they are still paying. Because if they don't, then they will penalize them through World Bank or through, they have the influence to say, well, these people didn't pay their taxes. And that's how they control them. Or instead of paying cash, they would take their timber, gold, whatever the natural capital assets they have, and Africans have been paying that. Those that were colonized by France have been paying that for the last 50 years and are still paying.
And you know,
This has to be addressed and we have to stop it.
right. And this is exactly what's happening with China right now with the loan. So if they give the loan and not keeping the people there that are actually having the jobs there, but also having Chinese workers come into Africa and giving the jobs back, you know, to the Chinese instead of the community there as well. And then on top of that, with the loan, how you're speaking of how it's being established and not being able to really be able to pay it back, it's a way of taking back the land, just the way that is still ongoing with what's happening with France right now.
Yep.
So those bureaucracies, really, like you said, that really has to be something formed to really go up against these bureaucracies and really start claiming Africa back.
Yes.
And yes, so
There's a lot of work to do. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, you know, it wasn't, I just wanted to go back a little bit even further, you know. The reason why, you know, it also, a lot of people don't know that, you know, China was conquered by the European powers at one point and split into 5. France, UK, United States, Russia, and it was split into 5. You know why they're still not there anymore? It's because China paid all those countries to leave. Actually, and all the silver reserve was paid, and they had to those Chinese had to mine more silver to keep on paying those countries to stay out. So that's why they're not there. So basically they conquered the country, and now you have to pay me to leave. You know, and then right now a lot of people say, well, Chinese bought the bonds from the United States. Well, the gold, the silver that was taken out of China is worth a lot more than those bonds. You know, it was billions of tons of everything. They took everything, all the gold, the silver, at the time that to pay back, because or else they would not leave China alone at that time. So now when a lot of people say that, well, China think the United States or so on, well, it's not true, because of all that, you know, all that, why China was poor. I mean, and now it's becoming wealthier, but before it was very poor, is because they stripped all the precious metals out of the country, and they had to keep on paying them back. You know, so that's kind of an atrocity. So this is the same situation for Africa, where the France is keep on paying. In African countries have to keep on paying France. China was the same way, and that leads us into the doctrine of discovery, which is the papal bulls that allow the European powers to be able to do that. And the doctrine of discovery is still active today, and that gives them the right to keep on taking from every single country that's Christian. So would you like to speak a little bit about that?
Tech, do you have anything to, let me give you, we have maybe about 15 minutes left, so I hear you, David, but I would like to give Tech a chance to to talk about that.
All right. Actually, I would really appreciate if you just go back and then, you know, go ahead and take it from David. And then when we wrap it up, I'll be able to, you know, proceed on the worldly basic income. Thank you very much.
Sure. So this system, whether it's Chinese or whether it's Europeans and even America, Every country in Africa is inundated with debt. World
Everybody's
Bank.
taken from Africa. Everybody has dipped their hand in Africa.
Yes.
Everybody has. Yes.
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 And I've said it before on another podium. The cradle of civilization is Africa, East Africa. All of us came from East Africa, for that matter. And yet, Africa is left behind. Everybody took advantage of here is how, when the colonialists came to Africa, it was Dr. David Livingstone that wanted to convert the pagans all the way to South Africa. He took a pilgrimage and wanted to convert the pagans to Christianity. And the poor African listened to this new religion called Christianity. And while they keenly listened and accepted Christianity, and they were handed the Bible, and that's how they lost their land.
Mm-hmm.
So the poor African lost all land, possible fertile land, full of diamonds, resources. And when David Livingstone went back to Europe, he says, my God, this is heaven on earth. Let's go colonize it. He made the way, and they followed his path. And that's how South Africa became colonized.
And of course, that had nothing to do with Christ. It was just, they hid behind that, which is horrible. But
Absolutely. So that kept on. It took for the whole world to cry, and Mandela was imprisoned. Every African nation was screaming and saying, stop, you cannot colonize us anymore, things have to change. Yeah, colonization stopped, but economic slavery is still there, let alone in Africa, even here. Marginalizing people. So in Africa, all African nations, we have to get together and say, we just cannot take loans where, let alone us, our children, great-grandchildren cannot even pay. We're in debt, we're putting debt on them. If you have not heard it, Mombasa Port, the pride of Kenya, is taken by China because they could not pay the loan. In that little tiny loan agreement, if you don't pay your debt by such a date, the collateral is the whole port. Just imagine Kenya with no port of Mombasa. So this has to stop. We have to get together. Africans have to wake up. We have to wake up. We just cannot afford. So this new paradigm, be it because of COVID, but the millennium is a different playing field now. We have to stop and think, how do we make Africa develop? Thank you.
thank you, Mesfin. Thank you. Yes, TK, if you want to go ahead, please do on our exit here and share your viewpoints and your strategies.
All right, thank you very much again for the opportunity. So, with regards to the, the Black Lives Matter, we all come from Africa, because as my brother Mesfin mentioned, the cradle of humankind, and we believe that, it's the origin of for the whole universe. And I believe that with love, everything is possible. And, when I had the chance to work with the the Bob Marley's foundation, the Rita Marley Foundation, when they brought the Bob Marley 60th birthday anniversary. I was collaborating with the United Nations country team to be able to promote and advocate, gender equality and all the aspects of just having a no woman no cry and one love and all that kind of situation is just basically the Black Lives Matter, because no matter what, people should not be discriminated or criminalized or killed just because of the color of their skin. So I believe we are all souls, and I believe that we have to be able to see our heart instead of our colors. So, and we should be able to be able to defend for one another. Trying to advocate for peace and reconciliation here in the U.S. As well as elsewhere. With in terms of the Black Lives Matter. So it really matters a lot because that's where I'm from, and I believe that our brothers in the U.S. and people with color everywhere has to have an equal opportunity in terms of economic opportunities as well as employment, as well as having safety and security. With regards to the gender equality and women empowerment, and we should definitely advocate for that. It's part of the Millennium Development Goals, whereby one of the goals is supposed to be empowering women and gender equality. So I really would like to focus on that. And again, I'll take you back to the same theme of Bob Marley, say no woman, no cry. And we should be able to, tell a story and advocate for, gender equality and women empowerment. So, and with regards to the world basic income, I would definitely like to focus to work, with the expatriates as well as different kind of talented people to convey the message, bringing back our pride. Everybody has with our origins, and we have a lot to offer. So the world should be able to see each and every one of us. Our diversity is our beauty, and our unity is our strength. So I believe that if we really capitalize on that, and then especially bring back the pride for all the young people, because the unfortunately the media, especially now, everybody has their own smartphone, and then with all this crazy things going on in the world, and everybody lost their self-esteem, and it's just us that we could be able to tell a story. The big elephants would just try to beat the same drum like again and again, so that they just simply control and divide and rule and conquer. But I believe that we should be able to advocate for all the young children in the US and Africa and everywhere in the third world should be able to be given an equal opportunity to express themselves and to express their culture and be proud of their culture, where they come from. And so that way they'll be more productive, and then they'll be able to achieve their dreams if they are just given this opportunity. So one of my great suggestions would be that we need to have like some sort of a Grammy Award kind of awarding company, like Cora Awards, like in Africa is the same replica of Grammy Awards and Oscar. So we should be able to, with the new social system, so we should be able to acknowledge our own heroes. We should be able to acknowledge and recognize the what they did in the past, and we need to really acknowledge their inventions, and in terms of the healthy living, in terms of arts and crafts, and the commitments that they have for the love of their country and their origin. And if we really show that acknowledgement, and like this the CNN heroes and things like that, I believe with this legacy awarding those elder people, will be able to initiate and will be able to actually help, the young to be able to be proud of who they are, and then they'll be able to be a better citizen, and they'll contribute to their family and community, and of course the world at large. So with that being said, at least the last but not least, I hope and pray that the world would be a better place. And with this pandemic, everybody has suffered quite a lot, but I believe that after the pandemic, I believe that 2021 will be a better year for everybody. And I thank every one of you, and I really appreciate you, and God bless you all. I would say one love.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Mr. Tesfaye. My name is Gail Davis. I'm actually friends of the three Peacemakers, Mesfin, Zaid, Sheri Lewis, and David Camp.
Hi, Gail.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing fine, Mesfin. I hope all is well with you as well, with your family.
Yes, thank you. And I got the message from David. I appreciate your prayer for my brother who's dying from cancer.
Yes, and I also text you directly too. I hope you got it. That my prayers and my family's prayers are with your family as well.
Same here.
I wanted to ask you, Mr. Tesfaye, something that's interesting to me because, one of the things we talked about today was women's empowerment and all of that, and that's great. But in every culture, in Africa, on the continent, I think what the world sometimes doesn't realize is that even within an African country on the continent are several communities. And I heard Mesfin say earlier about South Africa, which is dealing with 1 billion rand owed every single day. And 1 billion rand owed every single day is quite a lot of money, okay, in South Africa to owe. But the question I have for you is, culturally, every community in Africa is different, everyone. And how do we bring in, in terms of women's empowerment, in terms of the economic systems, into it based on each, because Africa is very different. And I'm not from Africa like Mesfin or you are, but I've engaged with Africa very much so. And I think we have to respect what people don't understand is Africa is extremely different because there are so many communities from country to country. I've heard some people not realize that Africa is a continent. So the question I have for you is, how do we bring in these economic systems to the different communities, because there are so many different communities per country, and how and we have to respect the culture, not only of that country, but each community. How do you see those new systems coming into play? And I only want to say one last thing. I think Africa is moving forward. The young people are not willing to take any nonsense, and they are doing what they can to move it forward. A lot of the under 30 are doing it. I'm in the UN like you are, and they're doing it. So I think we can give credit to that. But the question is, how do we move those systems in when each community is so different?
Gail, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit as passing it over, just using our indigenous nations here as an example, with all of our tribes being different, all of our tribes having different cultures. And one of the things that I think is unanimous is the fact of bringing our elders and our youth and the cultures themselves coming together. That's all I wanted to say, guys. If you want to touch on what Gail said, I just wanted to mention that in that way of the love and the desire to rise in a community, I think is something that is unanimous across the board. So anyway.
The reason why I brought that up, Sheri, is because, so for instance, like what you're talking about with the indigenous communities, there's still, if you go to New Zealand, you have the Maori community and the sections of that. But what's different a little bit about Africa and its indigenous communities is that in one country, you can have 26 different communities.
Well, that
Oh.
we do here as well with all of our different tribes and cultures.
No,
But
no,
I-
you're right. You're right. I
Yeah,
was just sharing that but I was saying like as a continent, it's
I totally get it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And no, what you're saying is on point, Sheri, 100%. But what I'm saying is in Africa, like if you go to Ethiopia or Eritrea, there are 110 different communities within the community within the community. With some of the other indigenous communities, we might be able to identify a little bit better and not have to go through as many, but there are intercommunities within intercommunities in Africa per country. And so I was just wondering how Mesfin and Mr. Tesfaye, for just because they have some knowledge of those communities, how they would see that going.
Mesfin, I think you have to unmute yourself.
I just saw that, yes. Yeah, if I may share a little opinion on that. First of all, you're right, Gail. In Ethiopia, Eritrea, within one country, there are 80 different languages. I'm not even talking about dialects. But one way to for instance, in Ethiopia, where I grew up, I was born and raised in Ethiopia. There is the national language that should be used by the government. And then every little province and even towns and villages could have their own dialect, or they could use that. But the language, the alphabet, has to be a national one language, maybe the majority within the country. That language could be put in place. Eritrea, the same thing. You have 9 different tribes, for lack of better word, but 9 different nationalities within the national. But then the main language is Tigrinya, and then the second is Arabic. So in our government official letters, documents, both languages could be used. It's a very, very tough, it's a good question. I don't know how, but somehow having all these different languages and dialects is very hard for any leader to try and get the point across. And you cannot be creating a software for 80 different languages in one small country. It's really difficult, but somehow we have to bring this up on another time, another topic, and maybe even have a good study on it, and come back and brainstorm it. But it's a very legitimate and concern. How can we have the United African country and come up with maybe English could be the main language for it, or Swahili, or how do we
Are the countries, the communities have their own governance, you know,
Yeah.
and so, and focus on the strengths. My gosh, it's been going on this long with all the dialects.
But you know, Sheri, that's actually a good idea. That's actually a good idea. You know, what you just said, having their own. Sheri, we can't hear you. Sheri, we can't hear you. Sheri, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
The cry we're talking about now in all the different communities, you know, so it's just about reaching them, right, Mesfin, and communication.
Yeah. We have to reach out. You're right. I agree with you. We have to reach out. We have, in today's technology, maybe there is a way I have Tigrinya and Amharic on my cell phone. And then whenever I want to, especially when I've traveled to the Far East. I've been to China. And thanks to the iPhone, they speak in Chinese, automatically translates into English, and I speak in English, translates for them in Chinese. Maybe technology.
Yeah, like having a little.
Yeah, there has to be a way.
Yeah.
But this is, Gail, you brought up a very good point. Something that needs a lot of studies, and right now I don't have much to add to it other than what I just expressed, and
Well, thank you.
acknowledge that communication is what we always say. You have to be able to communicate and to get your point across, but you need a language that everybody understands.
Well, Mr. Tesfaye, would this be either, this is my last question, would this be easier in Ghana? Because in Ghana, you have the Hausa, you have the Ashanti, you have the Fanti, you have the Ga, you know, and some up north. But one of the things I noticed is they have all the one interesting thing they have in common is most of the time, most of the Ghanaians actually speak English. Most Ghanaians. Would it be easier in Ghana than, let's say, as Mesfin was explaining, would be like what Sheri is saying? You know, it's a lot easier because the community is easier to engage with that one language and introducing the systems in. Am I making a wrong assumption about that?
A wrong assumption, but it is, yeah, in a way. I don't want to use a strong word like wrong, but it's challenging. And Ghana has its own. But how about the neighboring country has its own too? Chad has its own.
Right.
Right. That's what I'm.
Eritrea has its own. So, but there has to be, as you can appreciate right now, because of English is mostly spoken in most countries in the world. And it's a universal language anyways, right? And then French, and then German or Italian, and so on. But mostly English now is an acceptable universal language. Can we continue on that? Because the main issue here is trying to communicate without offending anyone. The main purpose of having one language is to express. But will all African countries accept that?
I think it might go back to what you were saying with cool technology, because everybody loves their heart language, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of pride in that heart language. And that's good that it wasn't stripped or something else wasn't, you know, forced upon it. So I think that it might go back to your communication process with body language and cool technology, maybe. Well, so everybody can feel respected in their heart language. But yeah, that's a very good.
Technology will do it. I think I would spend more time on technology to try and resolve that.
The friendly for humanity technology, the ones that don't take away from our health. But Gail, that was an awesome question. And you're right, you know, with how, because even that we have so many of our different nations and tribes and cultures here, it's unfortunate that a lot of our heart languages were well, English was forced upon us, but we do have that common communication in that sense. But at the same time, I love the fact that Africa hasn't had its heart languages ripped from, you know, their different bands and hold on to that. So I think that that's, you know, better to embrace it in their own governance, in their own community, without that colonization governance of trying to conform and bring it in that way. So I think that it is kind of cool what you were mentioning. I think it does go to maybe friendly for humanity technology, where everybody can feel empowered in their culture and heart language, but get the communication apart.
Listen,
there's always good Pictionary. There's always good Pictionary. You know?
Yes.
Yes.
Tesfaye, what is your thoughts about that in terms of Ghana, since since you understand that as well.
Which one now? Sorry, Gail.
The one that you were talking about, Mr. Tesfaye, in terms of Ghana, how would you see systems being introduced there? In terms of your country, it might be a little easier. I'm just saying it might be. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying it might be a little easier.
Okay, thank you very much again for that question. Actually, as a matter of fact, we have 80 ethnic groups and speaks about 200 dialects. So that's also a challenge for in terms of education, in terms of providing resources for that particular region, and as a diverse nations and nationalities, over 110 million people now. The national language being Amharic, but when I would say that if we pull our resources, from the LiveHOPE festival, as well as with a different kind of grants and opportunities, if we could possibly print out flyers in different kind of languages, and we try to reach to the people, to the grassroots level, on what we try to achieve, and trying to empower women, and because they've been burdened with a lot of household situations, as well as community situations, including fetching water, drinking potable water, which is supposed to be able to be available for everyone, and also provide maternal health, as well as reducing child mortality, as well as also trying to achieve a universal primary education, and empowering them, empowering the women, by educating them with their own language, and especially nowadays with the mobile technology, we could possibly have like a satellite radio, so that we could be able to translate and educate the people on that particular grassroots level, because nowadays everybody has their smartphone. It's a much better opportunity for the rest of the world to be able to reach out to the people who's unreachable and who've been less fortunate. So I believe that we can collaborate in terms of technology companies, in terms of satellite radio companies, and as well as international media, to be able to intervene, empowering them, educating them, as well as trying to support a little cooperative, to come up with their handicrafts, to come up with their textiles and jewelries, and their art and the makeup, and everything's come from Africa. Everything's come from Ethiopia, and nowadays it's you see that different kind of earrings and different kind of tattoos, different kind of attires and fashions, and all in the runway in New York or anywhere else, in Paris or Monaco, everywhere. So if we really empower those women, they'll be able to provide their God-given talent, to be able to showcase their expertise and their what they can possibly produce and supply for the rest of the world. So I believe that with all collaborations, and we can achieve all those goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll keep this going.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you all so very much. Would someone like to lead us out in prayer this evening as we conclude here?
Mesfin.
Well, I did the opening, so I'll let Gail do the closing.
There you go, Gail.
Oh, no. Sheri. Let's do it together. Sheri, let's do it together.
Okay, you go ahead, Gail. You go ahead, because I think this one's for you, sister. You go for it. I'm listening, and I'm right here with you.
Oh, that's not fair. Okay.
You got this.
Heavenly Father, well, you know what? I'm going to start out with this as an interfaith. To all those, whatever your belief may be, I ask that the universe will hold everyone in their hands and show nothing but love to them, teach them to love from the inside out, and to love each other, to really love each other authentically. let this really take everyone to the next level of love. Love doesn't mean yes all the time. Love doesn't mean no. Love means instruction. Love means kindness, but love also means to be accountable. Love means so many things that we just sometimes take it for granted to mean one thing. So, Father, as we come before you, whether it's Father, whether it's Buddha, whether it's Sufi, Hindi, Yoruba, Igbo, whatever it is that anyone believes in, we ask you to, in your native community, in your indigenous community, hold true to the love that you are and that your community is, and open your hearts up to love. And we filter out any negative energies, we filter out anything that doesn't belong in this world anymore. And we only focus on getting to know ourselves, our humanity, and sharing that with one another. In God's name, we pray. Amen.
That was
Amen.
beautiful, Gail. Amen. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. So, everybody have a blessed evening.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you. And
Bye-bye.
congratulations on the declares of the rights of the indigenous people. And thank you and God bless. One love.
God bless
Very
you.
good.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Hello, David.
Hi, Devin, Thorpe.
It's a thrill to meet you.
Great to meet you. I only can stay for like 15 minutes, and Gail will complete the interview. Just
So
like
I can only stay for the same amount of time, David.
Well, we can make it short.
And maybe Alex can take it from there.
Okay. Well, Devin, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'd be honored. I appreciate the opportunity. I am a very, very recent, just completed congressional candidate. I ran as a Democrat in a very Republican district here in the United States, in Utah, and did not win a seat in the U.S. Congress. And so now I'm moving on to the next thing, whatever that may be. But my story really begins when I was a young man, when I was 11 years old. My father asked me if I wanted to go with him one weekend to visit a nearby community that had been devastated by a flood, to help dig muck and mud out of basements. And I agreed to go with him. And it was a life-changing experience that allowed me to see what it felt like to help people in genuine need. And although I was so young, in hindsight, I recognize I didn't actually make a difference that day. As a young man, I didn't understand that. And so I really felt like I'd changed the world, and I wanted to do that again, and vowed that I would never miss an opportunity to do that. And while I did miss opportunities to do that, and went on to have a successful finance career, about a decade ago, I got fired from a great job and decided to channel that idealism of my youth and devoted myself to a second career focused on solving the world's big problems, including the eradication of extreme poverty, improving global health, and reversing climate change. And I've been working on that for the last decade, and running for Congress was just the latest manifestation of that effort. So that's me, David.
Thank you so much for the introduction. We're here to create a blueprint for the future of humanity. What would you like to contribute to the blueprint that, because this blueprint will be placed into a constitution called our Mother of Constitution? And what would you like to contribute for the future of humanity into the Constitution? Although, so I'd like to hear from you.
Sure. I really appreciate the invitation to think about this and express some ideas. I think as I look at the intersection of those things I care most about, I think of the need to accelerate our efforts to transition to a clean, green economy. But at the same time, I've become acutely aware of the impact that transition has on certain vulnerable communities. And we need to make sure that we stop what we're doing at every point in this process and ask the question, who may be negatively or adversely impacted by this transition, and reach out to solve the pain that this transition may cause them. And I think of two particular examples, but I don't mean in any way to limit the scope of that principle by using these two examples. But around the world, there are people, in example one, around the world, there are people who are coal miners and people who otherwise derive their living from fossil fuels. And as we transition away from fossil fuels, their lives will be negatively impacted. And we have got to be mindful of that. And so that's got to be a deliberate step we take in our transition to a clean economy. And then the second example is people who may be victimized by a rapid, and we do need a rapid implementation of clean energy, right? But I worry about especially indigenous communities around the world who may not have the full access to the financial resources required to provide them with the legal representation to negotiate fair arm's length transactions for things like access to their land for solar panels or wind farms or for high tension power lines and things that may need to happen. And I would hate for those communities to end up being victimized and not be able to participate in a worst case scenario with the electricity that's being created on or near or around their land. And so we've got to be mindful of, and again, we've got to be mindful of these people. And I use these two examples, the coal miners and the indigenous communities around the world that are maybe in the path of this transition to clean energy, to say, we've just got to be mindful for, more broadly, those who may suffer from our efforts to transition quickly, and we need to do it quickly, to a clean, green economy.
Thank you so for the insight. Do you have anything written you can send us? It doesn't have to be that quick. You can take your time.
Yeah,
we can perhaps share your ideas.
Yeah, I have a couple of ideas that are specific, especially with respect to the coal miners, and I have some ideas I borrowed and wrote about for Forbes on the indigenous community. So I'll share a couple of things with you.
That's great. Your article in Forbes might be interesting for people to see also.
Yes, for sure. I will share the link with you so that everyone can read it.
Where can people find you if they want to find out more information?
Oh, golly. I like to think I'm easy to find, but I'm on the internet at devinthorpe.com, and I'm on Twitter at Devin D. Thorpe. So those are the two fastest ways to find me.
And also for the indigenous communities, of course, this is a indigenous led conference. As let's say if you were elected as a government official, how would you help the indigenous nations? Because your ideas help also those people already elected. So what some ideas do you have?
Well, I am working now with a group of Rotarians and other interested people here in Utah on an interesting project. And I'm just the tiniest part of this effort, but I'm really excited about it. But what we're trying to create, and again, I should give, David Conine is the real leader on this effort, but we want to create a rural electric cooperative that would manage solar power that is distributed on homes in the Navajo Nation. And about 40% of the homes in the Navajo Nation are so remote that it is impractical to stretch power lines to those homes. And so they don't have power. So about 40% of Navajos don't have electricity. Of course, so that means they have no way to power their phones and things. So they end up doing ridiculous things sometimes, like idling a pickup truck for 3 hours to charge a phone. And so it's just a tremendous waste of energy and a very expensive way to charge a cell phone. And as a result of not having proper electricity, they don't have access to the internet, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea with this rural cooperative, instead of creating centralized power, solar or otherwise, the plan is to create distributed solar power right at the homes of the individual Navajo, but then have the rural electric cooperative manage that so that the Navajo pay a utility bill, a fair and reasonable utility bill for access to power, just like it were on the grid, even though it's just coming off of solar panels next to or on top of their home. And so it becomes a very affordable way for them to have access to electricity. And at the same time, we're providing a structure for it. Now, obviously, this cooperative will need financing, and it probably will have to subsidize some of this power, but it will be far cheaper using this model to subsidize the distribution of power across the Navajo Nation in these remote places, compared with running high power power lines all around this region. And so that's a specific example of something we're working on now outside of the government. And it'll require some government cooperation, but most of the, we'll probably want to ask for some funding, but a lot of the work will be done by the Navajo and under the legal rubric of the Navajo Nation. And I hope then it can be a model for other places as well.
Thank you so much for coming on with us, Devin, to share your ideas for the future. And we'll keep in touch for this project for the Navajo Nation with the Sheri called Dene, one of the 3 peacemakers. She's Dene.